Listen, man, this film is not for everybody. This film is for the die-hard boxing fans. I mean, when I was a kid, that's all I watched was boxing. Of course, UFC has come along. It's a new way of, watching fights, watching two people go at it. But boxing is part of us. Boxing will always be part of us, and boxing is always that history. It defines a generation, each generation. It's been with us since the beginning, pretty much of time. I mean, people have catered to violence. It's barbaric. However, there is honor within it. You had Liston, Muhammad Ali, Chavez, Arturo Gatti, Mickey Ward. I don't like Oscar De La Hoya, but Oscar De La Hoya, Trinidad, Lewis, Tyson, Holyfield, Marciano. I mean, you had these prestige boxers through every generation. Of course, boxing is not as good as back in the day because there was heart back in the day. You had Robinson. However, boxing will still always go on and is still a part of us. Yes, the tragedy of the Pacquiao and Mayweather fight didn't live up to the hype. However, this documentary will. I'm talking about, of course, the 2014 film directed by, let me get his name real quick, Burt Marcus. I couldn't remember his name. I knew it was Marcus because my uncle Marcus. But Burt Marcus, yes. Burt Marcus has truly delivered a fantastic documentary. And it's not catered to everybody. It's really just catered to the die-hard boxing fans. And I'm talking about, of course, Champs. Now, you could find Champs on Netflix. And if you love boxing, you need to check this out. I mean, we got 3 fantastic stories from rags to riches, from, just over. I mean, who doesn't want to? We've seen the story over and over again. However, it was done such a beautiful way with Tyson's story in this documentary. We have Holyfield's story. We have Bernard Hopkins' story in this film. You follow these 3 great champs, these 3 Hall of Famers. And they talk about their struggles. They talk about their childhood. They talk about basically when they got into the business. They talk about after they're done with the business. Rags to riches, getting screwed over, not finding, just finding another purpose after boxing. Boxing being their whole life, and then not getting certain benefits after, like not being taken care of. This documentary really was fantastic. I mean, once you get the start of it, the music already hits you, the pacing, the tone, the freaking boxers when they're doing their interviews. I mean, you're just intrigued. You're already engaged. This documentary gets you engaged, and it is a fantastic way of showing. Listen, I think the best quote in this movie was, "Rich people don't box. It's the poor people that box." You know why the poor people that box? Most of the people who, don't have anything and they become something is because they have to fight. Because there's nothing for them, they don't want school. They don't want this and that. They don't have money. They don't have clothes. But boxing is a gateway to get out of that. It is like basketball, football, or whatever. I mean, they're fighting literally to survive. So boxers that come who are greats have a background. Most of them have a background that, they didn't have very much. They had to fight to survive. They were in rough neighborhoods. Look at Bernard Hopkins. Hopkins' story, I think, was one of the best because Hopkins really just told you, it was a true underdog story. He lived in Philadelphia. He was in gang. He got stabbed. He went to jail. His brother died. He went out of jail. He freaking, became the oldest champion in the world. I mean, this dude is a Hall of Famer. He is one of the greatest boxers of all time. This dude knows how to make, and he tells you his struggles. He tells you, his conflict between maybe, not doing boxing, like, nah, that's not for me. But then, the penitentiary having this boxing ring in there and them telling him, listen, come to the boxing, get out your frustrations. He was boxing in a jail cell. He was champ in a jail cell. That's what's crazy about it. The penitentiary champ, but great. Then you had Evander Holyfield, such a just calm guy. Like, of course you could tell he's like, hard-headed, but he was calm. He's calm. He's basically he doesn't get, he's just like the wise sage, so to speak. He's lived it all. He's done it all. He's always wanted to be. He strives to be the best, and it shows you him. His rags to riches type story. He didn't have an education and stuff, but you know what? After boxing, he's still kind of boxing, he's just like trying to help others. He forgave Tyson when Tyson bit off his ear. He is one of the greatest boxers of all time, yet he doesn't get that same recognition like a Tyson gets. And then Mike Tyson, the guy who just had so much potential to be the greatest of all time. However, circumstances being, he was insecure. Also, everybody that was surrounding him, screwing him over, not really looking out for him. The guy went, he's not a bad guy. And you could tell later on, now that he's in this like kind of third chapter of his life, he definitely has, you see Tyson, more happier, more like, what, that was me back in the day. This is me now. And I'm a better person after all that mess that was going on. Because Tyson was a whirlwind. He was a sight to see, especially in the boxing ring. Now, also these boxers, the footage that they use to showcase their talents, the boxing matches they have, going back from beginning to end. I mean, it was really, really great. I loved all the footage. I loved the interviews. I loved what these boxers had to say about life in general. It really focused a little bit more on Tyson because Tyson is the bigger draw, but I did love Evander Holyfield's story, but I think I really catered to Bernard Hopkins. I think I wanted a little bit more Bernard Hopkins. I wanted a little bit, maybe like 2 more fighters to be in there included, but 3 was fine. It definitely did give you a sense of where these at. I wanted maybe more of, I definitely wanted at least one more boxer, one more boxer, but to tell their story. But these 3 stories are fantastic. Everybody kind of knows if you're a boxing fanatic, you know these guys' stories, and then they have, biographer, people who are with these fighters. This one person who's been with Tyson's friend, who's basically interviews and tells you about a little bit, like, I knew what Tyson was feeling, this and that. Autobiographer who's been covering Tyson forever, just like, telling him what he thought about Tyson's career. Tyson has a strange way of speaking, so the autobiographer, they'd cut to him and he'd like kind of explain it better and tell you what he was feeling that time because Tyson couldn't get it out. Also with, you have all these other boxing analysts. You have Mary J. Blige in here, who I never knew was a boxing, enthusiast. You had 50 Cent, of course. He has his own little boxing. He produces his own boxing stuff. Golden Boy Promotions, they talk about that. Bernard Hopkins touches on that. But I think the best thing about this documentary is they touch upon what happens after all these boxers are done, or even the risk you take when you're fighting, because they're getting constantly hit in the face, getting hit in the temple, their brain is fucking. You can only take so much. Your body is not. It shouldn't be enduring all this stuff, but boxers are enduring this for our entertainment and for basically to live off a paycheck. And if you think about it, if you're not, Media Frenzy, or you're not up there in ranked or whatever, and you're doing just like Showtime boxing, or not even Showtime, like shoe match boxing, you're only getting paid so much. You're not getting paid shit. You're better off working a 9-to-5 job. That's the sad part about the boxing industry. And I loved how they touch upon basically NFL, every other sport has like a fallout plan. They have people that come in and talk to them, or people like agents and stuff. Like, they have all the help in the world, but boxers don't have that. Boxers do not have that, help. They don't have that help. They don't have that help. So what's great with Bernard Hopkins, what he was talking about, basically, he's, whoever he signs, like this young talent and stuff, he makes sure that they have an accountant, they have, a lawyer or whatever, that they're pretty much set. And he pretty much states that, listen, people will screw you over. And that's what happened to Tyson, especially when he tried to sue Don King and stuff. So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's happening in boxing. I loved how they touched upon that, but there's a lot of meaning as well. Like, listen, you get from rags to riches, You get your riches, but what do you do with that riches? Do you just blow it all? Do you have an education? Do you invest? What do you do without it? So it's not just focusing on, the triumphant underdog story. They're focusing on basically, the story after. They're focusing on a lot of these boxers don't make it because they spend their money, they buy mansions and shit. That's not the way to go. You're setting yourself up for failure. So I love this documentary. I think this documentary really touches upon what happens in the boxing industry and also giving you these 3 stories for example. You have Mike Tyson, Evander Holyfield, and Bernard Hopkins. What more do you want? Even though I want another boxer, but those are great. Those are Hall of Famers. One of the greatest boxers, 3 of the greatest boxers of all time. 2 in the somewhat in the same division, but Evander Holyfield was in light heavyweight, and then he moved up to heavyweight. And also you had Bernard Hopkins. I think he's middleweight. He freaking took belts from everywhere. These 3 were fantastic. I absolutely loved the interviews. I absolutely loved basically everything about this documentary. I never felt bored. I always felt like they had footage. They cut the editing really did its job by cutting all the footage, the interviews, the music all together in one nicely, just great documentary. Just fantastic. If you love boxing, this is it. Watch it. It's on Netflix, so you could check it out. It's called Champs. I recommend it, and I'm pretty sure there's a lot more documentaries on boxing that's really great. But this one, especially the 30 for 30 on SportsCenter, but this is fantastic. It's a great documentary that must see for all boxing fanatics. Because you know what? Even though boxing has not been as strong or as great recently, especially with the Mayweather and Pacquiao fight, it's still a part of us. It's still a part of society. It's still, it's never going to go away. It's just never going to go away. And, just great stuff. So thank you guys for listening. If you please like the video and please subscribe if you haven't already. And that's just comment below. If you've seen it, let me know what you guys thought about it. And that's it, man. Great documentary. Dan the Man is out.